Hi, everybody. Welcome again. My name's Chap, if this is you're new. We are so grateful. And for Avante, I guess they've already left. Have they left? Weren't they marvelous? I don't know if you listened to them out there. And that's another one of our own, Joe Christina. Joe's with them. He leads the music portion of Kids Works and Avante singers. And so they really serve us well quite often. Fantastic. We are wrapping up a series that we've been looking at where the Gospel of John records 7 different I am statements that Jesus makes in order to draw our focused attention on the centrality of Jesus Christ, as almost a summary of all 4 Gospels. That's a way you can look at it. We've looked at all these different statements he makes to draw our attention to him without apology. With great love, joy, empathy, welcome, Jesus Christ proclaims who he is. And that's what we've been doing, taking a look at that. And tonight, this afternoon, we have the opportunity to walk into the place where he brings all of those things together. The final I am statement in John chapter 15. So if you're able, I invite you to stand for the reading of this final I am. John chapter 15, starting at verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father, he's the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you're like a branch that's thrown away and withers, and such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire and burned. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father's loved me, so have I loved you. Now, remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I've loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because servants do not know their master's business. Instead, I've called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command. Love each other. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Indeed. Have a seat. This is kind of the culmination, this upper room discourse, where Jesus is with his friends, the disciples. He knows he's going to be betrayed by both Peter and Judas. We've looked at that before already. He washes their feet to show that the way of Jesus is really about taking up the towel, about serving, and not about power and confronting. It's a whole different way to go about bringing his kingdom in, but he is indeed bringing his kingdom in. So he takes these moments together, this meal together, revealing to us why we gather for bread and the cup, to remember him and to be empowered by him and to love one another as we receive the gift of himself. John 13 and 14, and the end of John 14, I think it's verse 31, where Jesus says, "Come now, let us leave And then he goes on and launches into John 15 we just read. We don't know if they actually got up then and left that upper room. But if they did, they were walking from that upper room in whatever house, we're not sure where that was, but ending up in the Garden of Gethsemane, and our best guess is that he would have walked by the temple or close by where these huge vines grew. And perhaps he was using those vines as his example of what it meant to actually belong to him. But, even if he didn't, we know that he often used things that were ordinary and commonplace. It's as if we talked about roads and highways and education and our life together, our narratives as folks in one nation or another. We use illustrations to describe life and connect that to who God is and who he calls us to be. Well, Jesus did that a lot. So when he's using this metaphor or this parable of the vine, if you were here a few weeks ago, he also did that in John 10 when he says, I'm the gate for the sheep. Everybody knew about sheep, and they knew about gates, and they knew about shepherds. Here, everybody knows about the vine. I got to confess something to you guys. I've known this passage a long time. I've read it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. But in my various roles, both as a teacher at Fuller Seminary, but also when I would be speaking or writing something, most of the time when I get to passages like this that are so profound and so important, it would be really easy for me to kind of cherry pick those verses I like the best. Oh, I like that one. Oh, I like that one. But when you're in this kind of role, and we really got to take this stuff and look carefully, especially in this series, I got to confess to you guys, this, when I'm honest, inside, this has always caused me a little bit of struggle, maybe sometimes even anxiety, this passage. I don't know if that's ever done that for you, if you've read it before. Because it's encouraging, yay, he's the vine, he's inviting us to remain in him, yay, but there's a huge in this one. Anybody catch it? It has to do with fire and cutting and yikes, all right? And as he kind of goes into this stuff, hey, love you. Oh, you screw up, you're done. Oh, love you. You mess up, you're out of here. And as I kind of wrestle with that becomes a tension as I try to take this thing called following Christ seriously. But here's the deal is, this is not intended to be discouraging. In fact, it's intended to be encouraging, because the point is not whether or not I've worked hard enough to connect to the vine by bearing fruit, but whether or not I'm related to the vine in such a way that fruit comes through me. And I'm going to tell you that difference is what makes the difference between the anxiety of following Christ and the fear of following Christ and the cutting others off from his message and the freedom that we have in Christ. It's a parable. It's a metaphor that he uses, just like in John 10. It's a different kind of parable than in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Those parables are these clear stories. But in this parable, he's basically saying matter-of-factly what happens to a branch that is trying to bear fruit without connection to the vine. It's simply what is. That's all he's doing. If a branch is not doing its job to bear fruit, then that branch is obviously not necessary to the vine, because somehow the branch and the vine are not connected. That's his point. Now, so here's the key theme in this passage, verses 1 to 17, is this word remain. Do you notice that? Boy, that thing's out there. 10 times it's here in the English. 9 times in the original language in the Greek. 10 times he talks about remain, using the metaphor of a branch cannot fulfill its role as a branch if it doesn't remain. That's what he's talking about, is as he leads through us through all those I ams. I am the center, and you are to remain in me. There's another word here that's out there 8 times. I don't know if you picked up on this. There's these 2 words that kind of go throughout this whole thing. And then love comes into play. I'll talk about in a second. The other word is ready? Fruit. Fruit. That you'll bear fruit. Your job is to bear fruit. Here's the rub. Here's the problem for me anyway. I don't know about you guys, but you can listen into my journal. Is the idea of if my job is to bear fruit, then I come to Christ and I go, okay, I'm going to do my job. My work is to bear fruit. I am supposed to work hard at bearing fruit. I almost get to the point where, yes, Jesus has loved me, Jesus created me, he's bought me back, he's empowered me, he's forgiven me, he suffers and dies and reigns on high, but it's almost like he's gone, I'm done. Whew, it is finished, the end of John. And he's been taking a nap for 2,000 years. And he's telling me, your turn. You get at it, Christian. He's folded his arms and said, I've done all the work, now you go out there and bear fruit. And I got to tell you, that's not limited to my early years of being a follower of Christ. It's continuing on to this day. Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right stuff? Am I fighting for the right things? Am I living for myself or am I living for his purposes? And here's what, boy, this is way too often talked about. Am I living according to Christian principles so that I can bear fruit? Or am I remaining in the vine so he can bear fruit through me? I'm sorry to say, and you probably heard this a lot, I've sure heard it a lot, the game is not about living according to Christian principles. And following Christ is not about me working hard to bear fruit so that Jesus will unfold his arms and go, finally, you're worthy. Christianity is not about get at it because I'm ticked at you. Our faith is about this great joy that he draws us into, and our job is not to concentrate on trying to bear fruit. Our job is to not look in that direction, but alter our gaze and to look into the direction of the vine, to cling to the vine. That word to remain is translated to abide, to be with, to connect. And an even deeper implication is, and you see it right here in this text, he has already come to make a space for us with him. He's created a home for us. So what's our role? To go out and work, to earn entering into that space? No. But to enter into that space with him, to make a home and a space for him to connect with us. In other words, to remain in him is to make a space for him, is to enter into that relationship where I let go of all of my work, effort, desires, convictions, and I simply be with him so that he can live his life through me. What is fruit? Two things. Fruit is character. You know, there's in education, a lot of you guys are educators or you go to school. My 2 worst years are 7th grade. I've told you that before. And boy, did it improve the rest of my grade point average from there on. Wow. The education world is trying to build character, right? It's kind of a big deal. Kids don't have any character anymore. It's all us old people that hate them that have all the character. So what do we do to build character? Well, we have a word of the month. Loyalty, one word. Yay. Okay. Honesty. Yeah. Okay, great. Integrity. Great words about character. As if you can actually bear the fruit of character from the outside in. I want you to look at verse 5. If you got your Bible open. It's not like it's in parentheses, so Jesus goes, everything else I'm saying is really important, but verse 5, you can put in parentheses because I really don't mean it. That's not what's going on. Look at this. I'm the vine. Let's just stop there. Hey, everybody, disciples, hey, guys, let me just remind you something. I'm the vine, okay? Who are you? Oh, you get to be the branches. Awesome. If you remain in me and I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. But notice this line, apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus makes it absolutely clear that because he is our creator, He knows us. He's the bread who sustains us. He's the light that drives away the darkness and the fear, that empowers us to change. He is the gate that leads us into the place in our Heavenly Father's arms. He is the good shepherd. He's the resurrection and the life that gives us new life as we trust him, that doesn't start when we die and go to heaven, but starts right now. We're absolutely free. These are all these I am statements. And I am the way, the truth, and the life. That was last week. The way of Christ is not to do Christianity, to live according to Christian principles. No. The way of Christ is to walk with, to follow with, to remain in him. It turns the whole thing completely upside down. Apart from me, you can do, and the actual word there, nothing, is stronger than that. It's absolutely nothing. It's definitely not by our work to try to live this Christian life. It doesn't produce character when we try to be good people on the outside, when we try to be kind or have integrity. It's not that we don't step into who we are as we remain in the vine, but the point is it doesn't come from us. It comes from inside of us. True character change happens from the inside out and not the outside in. And Jesus is saying he is the one who empowers that, who makes that happen. Why? Look at verse 11. I've told you all this, so my joy may be in you, and your joy may be complete. Leslie Newbegin, crummy name, but great theologian. He's got 2 S's, spells it wrong. And anyway, he's written a really great commentary. It's from Great Britain, so they do that. And here's one thing he said about this particular passage. Take a look at this. Is the fruit is not an artifact of the disciples. It's the fruit of the vine. It's the life of Jesus himself reproduced in the lives of the disciples in the midst of the light of the world. We as branches are meant for fruit. That is our purpose. But the only way fruit will occur is when we remain in the vine. And he will produce in us the character that honors him. But that's not the only thing that fruit is. Fruit is also about how God works through us to bring his kingdom in. It's incredibly important, but so many of us think that Christianity is about doing character, is about doing the acts that will change the world for the sake of Christ. That sounds so noble. It sounds so beautifully American. But it's not the gospel. Because it is only as we alter our gaze, when we shift from the doing of the way of Christianity, and we remain in, we sit with, we listen to, we wallow in the midst of, we are held by the vine. That's why it's called freedom. You know, our power bursts forth as we remain in the vine. Our hope emerges as we abide with the vine, but our joy increases as we make our home with the one who calls us his own. You guys, that's it. That's the game. That's why in our mission statement last week, if you were here, we have at the very center is not our strategy. It's not our plans. It's not our work. It's the great joy that we get to connect to, enter into, share a home with, sit in the family room with, the one who's lit the fire and has the chairs ready to go. And if you like s'mores or a fine beverage, sitting with him and being connected to him, that is what brings us the great joy. Okay, all that said, that sounds so great, doesn't it? How do you do that? I have no idea. Let's close in prayer. It's really been a fun day. Katie, your song was magnificent, and because I know how to do. I know how to do stuff. I know how to disappoint, and I know how to sometimes get people to go, way to go. I've been taught my whole life that life is about doing, producing, performing my way to blessing. But Jesus had to constantly remind his friends, the disciples, that it's not about my efforts. It's not about my work. It's not about my accomplishments. It's not about my resources. It's about letting go of all that in order to connect to the vine who's created me and to make a home and a space with him. That's my role. Now, a couple of things that he says at the end of this in verse 16. He wants to remind us of something. He not only says it to the disciples, but he says it to us. You did not choose me, but I chose you. A lot of folks for hundreds of years have taken that passage and go, I don't have to do anything. All I got to do is let him choose me, and then it's done. Yeah, you know that old joke. I haven't told this to the other services so they won't get it, but if you're listening into the 11 o'clock, this is for you. It's the old joke about the Presbyterian that fell down the stairs, broke everything, and said, man, I'm glad that's over with. That's only funny if you have any idea what it means to be Presbyterian. That's okay. One person that laughed. Thank you. By the way, it's hysterical. On the way home, you'll go, I kind of get it. That's because Jesus chooses me. Jesus does stuff. All I got to do is go along for the ride. We call that Reformed theology. It's not Reformed theology. It's a misunderstanding of the gospel. There's no such thing, if you've heard the line about Presbyterians being the frozen chosen. There is no such thing. Because if you are a frozen person who's chosen by Christ, but you don't remain in the vine, you will wither and fall off the vine. We do play a role even though he has chosen us. And that role is for us to alter our gaze from bearing fruit on our own to abiding in the vine. And as we do, that's the second half of this passage in verse 16. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And guess what? Here's what he says to you today. I appointed you. I appointed you. I've been doing youth ministry my whole life. A lot has to do with my character. I just got to be around kids. Remember, vitality matters. And here's a beautiful thing about the youth ministry world is how we as adults have neglected people that have these labels, millennial, Gen Xers, Gen Y. And they, as a universal kind of characteristic, is they kind of lack purpose as a general rule. Every one of us was created by God to have a purpose. Well, that's what Jesus is saying. I not only chose you, but I appointed you. You have a purpose, and the purpose is to bear fruit by having the character of Jesus Christ come pouring through you as you grow, remaining with him, and also to participate in his kingdom work. You and I, our vocation is to remain. Not to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a therapist, a pastor, whatever we think our vocation is, our vocation, our efforts, our calling, vocare in Latin, is to abide, dwell, make a home with, sit in front of the fire with the one who calls me, and then he takes care of everything else through me. So how do you do that? Well, when you love somebody, you take time and effort to make the space to create that kind of relationship, right? If you've ever loved anybody, I met Dee in early August of 1980, and immediately she was smitten. She's with our babies and horses up in the Northwest, so she didn't hear me say that. But the Lord did an amazing work. I won't go into it now. Maybe you've heard it before, but it happened very fast. On December 27th, we will have celebrated 39 years of marriage together. And I know why you're clapping. You're clapping because, man, that Dee, she is something. She's a saint, man. How could she do that? But through it all, we hardly knew each other. And she had vowed to God, I'll never move to L.A. Well, I lived in Palos Verdes, and they don't like to say that's LA, but it's part of LA County. And so we got married. She moved from Seattle down to LA, and we built this life together. And I was a guy that was described as a blur in the parking lot, where I would move through life so dang fast because, man, I was going to bear fruit for the kingdom. I was also going to bear fruit for my dad because he was so disappointed. He had my life course set before me from a young age, and I took this turn into ministry as I heard Christ's voice. But so I was not only bearing fruit for the kingdom, I was bearing fruit for me, for him. So I was going to work at it, man. And I was going hard and fast, and I was doing the stuff. You ever been that way as a Christian? I really care. I'm going to work for you, Lord. I'm going to do for you. And then I meet this person, and God calls us to get married, and then we have a child. And then the way that I was living according to Christian principles, bearing fruit, I was moving right across the surface of life. And it was so easy for me to just include her in my quest to bear fruit. But see, that's not love. And I had a mentor at the time who shared with me, he said, how do you prepare for entering into your time together in your little apartment there in Lomita? How do you prepare? I go, what do you mean? He goes, when you're driving, how long does it take you to get from your office? 15 minutes, okay. What do you do? This is before cell phones. Do you listen to little things called cassette tapes? They made them in 1840. Do you listen to cassettes? Do you listen to the radio? Do you think about the next talk you're going to give or the next thing you're going to do? What do you do? And I go, I don't know. Think about my last conversation, how my day was. I listen to tapes. And he goes, how about if when you're knowing you're going to enter into that space with the person that you love, you stop yourself to consider who they are as you enter into that space. That's the first step to making a home, is to consider the one you are going to connect with. So it became kind of a discipline, and I'm not really good at discipline. Way better than I was when I was 25 or 6. But the discipline of it, when I get in the car, of going, no, I'll turn off the radio. Now it's turn off the phone. It's don't think about your day or sports or all the other podcasts or anything else. I'm going to go see Dee. And therefore, what's Dee's day been like? What does Dee need? How am I going to enter into her space to be able to settle in with her so that we can deepen the bond that we have together as we make that home together? Same thing with the Lord. You want to remain with him? You got to discipline yourself to take time to consider him. When you're listening to something, to stop, turn it off, and say, Lord, what do you think of that? What is your kingdom about with that particular issue or that person or that fear or that pain or that accomplishment? In other words, take time to consider. That's the first step. After you get your mindset into, you know what, this is my vocari, is to remain with him, is to consider him. The second is this, then you got to make a plan. You got to plan it because it didn't just happen. You don't just get intimate by just saying, I'm going to consider you, I love you, yay, here we go, we're good. No, what you do is you make a plan. I learned this from a guy named Jim Burschbach, a little firecracker guy, about 10 years older than me, very successful business guy. We met each other, and he goes, let's get together for breakfast. I said, fantastic, let's get together for breakfast. And we went off. Next time I saw him, he goes, hi, how's it going? Hey, well, let's get together for breakfast. I go, I'd love to get together for breakfast. Gone, done. Next time I saw him at something, a Young Life deal or something, he goes, how come we haven't had breakfast? I go, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd love to have breakfast with you. He goes, okay. Well, we used to have these things, some of you remember them, called daytimers. They were what are called calendars. People used to actually plan things with these deals. You can sort of do it on your phone, but almost we don't. We just throw it in there and forget about it, and it's a 15-minute alert, right? But we had these daytimer deals. He goes, give me your calendar. Give me your daytimer. I go, what do you want my daytimer? Give me your daytimer. Okay. He opened it up and he found it next Tuesday, okay? Yeah, nothing there. Okay, perfect. He wrote down 6 a.m. breakfast, Jim Burschbach. I went 6. That's when I get up. I work for Young Life. I was bearing fruit. And he goes, all right, we're meeting here, 6 a.m. breakfast. Done, right? Because we're going to go to work after that. Okay. What's really funny is the week we got there and had this breakfast together, he made me give him my daytimer again, and he started writing in it every Tuesday, 6 a.m. in my calendar. He goes, so you won't forget, I'm going to write it on Sunday that on Tuesday morning you have a breakfast meeting with me. And he taught me what it meant to be intentional about connecting. It's not just with those we love and our friends or our family, but it's also that intentionality with the Lord. How do you plan to remain in him? How do you consider your schedule? the way you go through your day. It can be something as simple as carving out 15 minutes every morning early, or in the evening, or in the middle of the day. We actually have control over our schedule. We may think we don't, but at some point we have control to be able to say, I'm going to plan to sit in front of the fireplace with Jesus Christ in order for me to connect with him. I'm going to plan to do that. Here's how I'm going to do it. It's different for everybody. I believe this is why he says, love one another, because we need each other to remain in the vine. We need each other to help us to formulate our plans, to get ready to go into that kind of safe space. But the third thing we need to do, actually, is make the bed. What do you mean, make a bed? Well, there's a little book I read. Dee bought it, obscure little book by a retired admiral. And I love stealing her books because they're always obscure. I've never heard of them, and they're awesome. This is more the lessons he learned as an admiral, a SEAL leader, a commander. And what he says about make your bed is, any of you in the military, you probably still do this, is they teach you the second you wake up, the very first thing you do is you make your bed. You drop the quarter, and if it hits the ceiling, you've made a good bed, okay? And you take the time to be disciplined, to do a great job making your bed, and you learn to do it well and learn to do it fast. And just by doing that little discipline, you put into practice the activities you have for your day. In other words, most of us will make a plan to meet with Jesus, but we won't actually follow through. Our habits die hard. We may say, I'm going to do this, but then something else sneaks in. We get a little tired. We get a little complacent. We turn on the TV, on the computer, look at our phone, and pretty soon we've blown through our plans. You know what? That's how you wither and die. We've got to make the plan, make the bed, and do the thing. But here's the point. At the end of the day, is we simply need to be. You do all that other stuff to set it up. Do you want to belong to Jesus? Do you want to receive the power that he has pouring through you? Do you want the hope to sustain you? And most of all, do you want the complete joy that he offers us as we remain in him? It takes that kind of discipline. And the final issue, here's the deal with Dee or with Jim Birchbach. You can do the planning and you can actually show up on Tuesday morning, but if you think that's all there is to it, you won't actually get there. Because when it comes time, all this other stuff simply prepares you to enter into that space to be with Jesus. And that's the gift. That's where the joy comes from. When we allow ourselves to sit. Somebody said, well, that means reading the Bible. I think most of the time reading the Bible sometimes can be doing the plan and not being with the Lord. Yes, read the Bible to know him. But once you get to a verse that goes, wow, Lord, you really said that? You close your Bible, you put it down and you go, tell me about that verse. Tell me about your heart. I'm not feeling much right now. What are you feeling, Lord? How do I just stare at the fire when I'm sitting next to you holding your hand? How can I end up at breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning saying, breathe with me, tell me, let me be. To remain in Jesus Christ is to take the shift from bearing our own fruit on our own terms, in our own way, to letting go. And moving into creating a space for connection with Jesus Christ. If you want him, that's what all these I ams are. He's there ready. John 14:20. I am in you. I prepare the fire. I got the hors d'oeuvres out. The chairs are comfortable. I'm ready. Will you enter in with him?